Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Alex Morash, who is running in the Democratic primary for state representative in the 1st Barnstable district to replace retiring state rep Cleon Turner. We are focused on politics with the upcoming primary election on September 9th. Among the races that will have a contested primary is the 1st Barnstable district. 3 Democrats and 1 Republican are running in the primary. The primary will determine which of the Democrats will appear on the ballot in November. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Laura, and thank you to the listeners at home and driving around today for tuning in.
And let's start with your background. Tell us a bit about yourself, where you live on the Cape, what you do for a living.
Sure. I grew up in Yarmouth, was educated in the DY school system, after which I went on to receive my bachelor's from Framingham State and my master's in political science from Northeastern. I have a long history of progressive activism. I served on the Democratic State Committee representing Cape Cod and the Islands. I was vice chair of the Young Democrats of Massachusetts, and even was an advocate at the State House for youth suicide prevention funding as a member of the Mass Commission on LGBT Youth.
Now, you're a Democrat. Tell us about your political philosophy and why you decided to run to represent the 1st Barnstable district.
Sure. I'm running to work on issues that affect our communities. I think one of the most important issues facing us right now is matters of education funding. Our state has underfunded our schools' special needs funding across the Commonwealth by $1 billion annually. They do this because the state actually discourages schools from identifying special needs students by doing it as a percentage of the student population, whereas everything else the state funds with schools is on a per-pupil basis. So one of my biggest focuses is working on getting that funding changed to be on a per-pupil basis so that we can help our students here in Dennis, Yarmouth, Brewster, and Barnstable.
Now, you mentioned a little bit your experience in politics. Can you talk a little more about what you've done in politics, any local committees or any other runs for office?
Sure. Running for the Democratic State Committee for the Cape, you actually have to go to all the local town committees from P-Town up down to Barnstable and ask for their votes in order to get that, and I did win in a competitive election. It was a very wonderful experience, and I've always enjoyed going to local political activities on the Cape. The way Cape Cod handles our politics is so much different and so much better than in many other areas where I've worked on other campaigns. We are much more polite on Cape Cod. We enjoy having nice discussions. You know, I've seen that to be really wonderful on the Cape, and I haven't seen quite that level of politeness and kindness off Cape. So that's what I really love when I'm down on the Cape doing things like that.
Now, and I know I've seen you that you're involved in town meeting and perhaps some other local committees. Is that right?
I was at the last town meeting where I was a major advocate for making sure that we funded the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School System. Our students need those funds, and I was proud to be one of the voices to stand up for our schools.
Now, what do you feel are the biggest issues on the Cape and Islands that you could influence as a state rep for the 1st Barnstable district?
I think one of the biggest issues after education is dealing with economic development. One proposal that I've put forth and that we've discussed in the debates so far is I'm in favor of expanding the commuter rail to Buzzards Bay and then trying to get an expansion to come to the Hyannis Transportation Center. We've already seen the Cape Flyer has been a truly wonderful thing, and Main Street Hyannis has seen such new growth. There are new companies starting up. You know, just today my friend and I was having coffee at Rendezvous, and now we have the Green Lotus has opened up, and these really wonderful little places. And I think if we can expand the commuter rail to do more frequent service on Cape, we can see more economic activity, and we can make an easier way for the 10,000 commuters on Cape to commute off Cape as well.
Now, what are your thoughts on a lot of talk on the Cape about our damaged estuaries and how wastewater affects that? Any thoughts on that issue?
Wastewater is a very important environmental issue. I am a supporter of the Cape Cod Commission's regional plan. They just came out with their newest plan that's going to be a per aquifer specialization, and I think that's really the way to go. When Cape Cod teams up together as 15 towns, we're able to get more from the state than when we act as individual towns.
Now, another big issue we hear all the time on the Cape and Islands, the problem with drugs, addiction, how that influences crime. Any thoughts on that, and how, if you were a legislator, how you could affect that issue?
Drug abuse, mental health, and suicide prevention are all related aspects of each other. Many people do drug abuse as a way of self-medicating, and I think we need to be looking more at mental health and how we can try and give mental health parity where we have health parity. Right now, I think one of the biggest things we can do as a community with mental health is the idea of trying to take away the stigma of getting mental health treatment. Every individual in our Commonwealth can work on trying to reduce that stigma. One thing I talk about on the campaign trail is this idea that we can do better. And I always mean that as we as a community can strive to do more for our fellow human beings. And I think this is one of those issues where we have to step up to the plate and say, we need to respect people on mental health issues. It leads to drug abuse. It also leads to issues of suicide. When I was on a state commission dealing with suicide prevention for youth, it was always came down to mental health issues. And just last week, we saw the tragic death of acclaimed comedian Robin Williams, who also was suffering from alcohol abuse. And those sorts of issues are so important. I wish people like Robin Williams and many of the young people I've worked with were able to get mental health treatment sooner, and that we took away more of the stigma on mental health.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We're focused on politics with the upcoming primary election on September 9th. I'm talking with Alex Morash, who is a Democrat running for state rep in the 1st Barnstable District. We're talking about local issues that you might be able to affect if you were elected as state legislator. Affordable housing, we see that coming up time after time, young people not being able to afford to stay in the region because there isn't enough affordable housing. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a major advocate of affordable housing. A lot of people don't realize that there's so few available homes to rent. My day job is a realtor with Jolly Maccabee and Weinert, and people come to me all the time seeking rentals for year-round use. I'm like, I'm sorry. I think Barnstable County found about 2% of our housing stock is rentals. And so there's so few. So the only way to really get more young people to be able to have a place to live on the Cape is to expand affordable housing. I'm a major advocate of the bonding authority bills that Senator Jamie Eldridge has been a leader on in the State House, and I'll work with Senator Eldridge to try and expand that funding so we can get some of that for Cape Cod.
Another issue we hear about all the time, particularly this time of year, is traffic and the talk about should we have a third bridge and what can be done with traffic. You mentioned earlier in the interview your interest in increasing rail service. What are your views on the issue of a third bridge and other things we can do to help alleviate some of the traffic on the Cape?
Well, one of the important things with expanding commuter rail is we could remove 1,000 cars a day on the trip to Boston, which would really help put some alleviation on our roads. When it comes to a third bridge, I'm not convinced that a third bridge is the way to go. First, the type of funding they'd like to do it is they call it a private-public partnership, which sounds like this wonderful, sweet idea, until you realize the way the people pushing it is Wall Street. It's just Wall Street profiteering. Even the idea that some of these private-public partnerships, the investors demand that you don't invest in your other roads. And besides this being a toll bridge, there's even the idea of doing a toll road in conjunction next to Route 3. So this is just the beginning of having more tolls and having to pay more fees to the Commonwealth just to put money in the hands of Wall Street bankers. And that's not what I'm for. And also, quite frankly, I haven't seen any proposal to expand the roads on the Cape after this bridge comes. So we get the extra traffic. Where are we going to put the cars? Our off-season traffic now is the same as our peak traffic in the 1980s and 1990s during the peak of summer. So I'm not convinced.
Another big topic on the Cape, always renewable energy and the talk of the Cape, the wind farm in Nantucket Sound, the Cape Wind Farm, and then talk of putting wind turbines in various places, Dennis, wind turbines in Falmouth. What are your thoughts on renewable energy, wind turbines, things like that?
I'm definitely pro renewable energy. I'm saddened that The wind turbines off Cape did decide to purchase their materials from a German manufacturer. I would have preferred they did an American manufacturer. I am glad that they are going and hiring local people in the greater South Shore area to do the work, so I'm glad that we're getting jobs from that. And I think that it's going to lead to some great energy for us. I'm also supportive of extra solar energy. The only type of energy that I'm really concerned about right now is we do have a nuclear power plant, Pilgrim, which was designed for only 40 years. It's now on year 42. It's been having constant problems. It's been given another 18 years of licensing. I will be a strong advocate to close down that plant.
Now, there are 3 Democrats running in the primary. You're one of them. What distinguishes you from the other 2 Democrats running in the primary on September 9th?
I'm the candidate with experience dealing with the State House. I know when to file bills to get them into committee. I've dealt with the legislative process for funding and budgets. I know how to get resources to Cape Cod. That's why I think I have the experience to be our next state rep.
Now, in the final minute or so, what would you like voters to know when they think of you and in the race and when they go to vote in the primary? What do you think? What would you like them to think of when they think of Alex Morash?
I'd like them to think about how we need to fund our education system better, how we need to fill that $1 billion gap in special needs funding. I'd like them to think about how wonderful it would be to expand commuter rail so we can have more walkable communities supported with public transit. And I'd like them, if they have any other questions about my campaign, visit my website, www.alexmorash, that's MORASH.com.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Alex, thank you so much for coming to the show today.
And thank you for having me, Laura.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.